The German shepherd's claws scraped against frozen metal as he threw himself at the patrol car door, a sound Officer Robert Mitchell had never heard in 8 years of partnership. Duke's bark wasn't the sharp alert of a drug find or the aggressive warning of a threat. It was something raw, desperate, almost human in its anguish. "Duke!" "Dacious." Bobby's command died in the winter wind. The dog launched from the moving cruiser, hitting the snow-packed shoulder at 40 miles per hour. Bobby slammed the brakes, tires screaming on black ice. Through the curtain of falling snow, he saw it, twisted metal wrapped around an ancient oak tree, 50 feet down the embankment, red paint barely visible under white powder, a sector to slack. His hands went numb on the steering wheel. Duke was already at the wreckage, howling like the damned. The sound carried across the empty Nebraska highway, bouncing off frozen fields. 3:47 p.m., December 23rd. Bobby knew that car. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. Bobby Mitchell had grown up in Lincoln County, Nebraska, where winter meant isolation and everybody knew your business before you did. Population 8,400, 3 churches, 1 high school. The kind of place where a man's reputation followed him like a shadow, and his mistakes became family legend. He was 38 now, wearing the same badge his father once wore, living in the same 3-bedroom ranch on Maple Street where he'd learned to ride a bike and bury his grief. The house felt bigger every year, emptier, like it was slowly swallowing him whole. His mother, Margaret's photos, still lined the hallway, her smile frozen in time. Never aging past 53, cancer had taken her 3 years ago. But not before she'd whispered those final words that still haunted him. "Find your father. Forgive him." Bobby had walked out of her hospital room instead. William Mitchell, Bill to his friends, Dad to no one anymore. The man had disappeared 16 years ago on Christmas Eve, walked out without explanation, without goodbye. Bobby had been 22. Fresh from the police academy, his whole life spread before him like an open road. He'd come home that night to find his mother sobbing at the kitchen table, his father's wedding ring beside a half-empty coffee cup. No note, no call, nothing. The community had whispered for months. Affair, they said, gambling debts, midlife crisis. Bobby had invented 100 reasons, each one carving deeper into his chest. His mother never spoke ill of the man, which somehow made it worse. She'd kept his clothes in the closet, his tools in the garage, as if he might walk back through the door at any moment. He never did. Duke had been Bobby's salvation, the one relationship he couldn't screw up. He'd found the German shepherd 5 years ago, a trembling puppy abandoned on Highway 7, half-starved and shivering in a thunderstorm. The dog had looked at him with those intelligent brown eyes, and something in Bobby's chest had cracked open. They'd been inseparable since. Duke knew things could read Bobby's moods before Bobby recognized them himself, could sense danger before it materialized, had pulled 3 children from a burning house and tracked down a missing Alzheimer's patient through 6 miles of forest. 47 successful rescues in 5 years. An exemplary service record, awards lined Bobby's office wall, most of them with Duke's name attached. The dog had never disobeyed a direct command, never broke protocol, never acted out of pure instinct over training. Until 3:47 p.m. on December 23rd, when Duke had looked at Bobby with something like recognition, like memory, and jumped from a moving vehicle to reach a crushed red Cadillac that Bobby's father had driven away 16 years ago. Bobby's boots hit the ice-crusted shoulder before his mind caught up with his body. The embankment was steep, treacherous, with fresh snow over frozen earth. He could hear Duke below, that terrible keening that made his spine go rigid. The temperature had dropped to 15 degrees, and the Weather Service had issued a blizzard warning. They had maybe 90 minutes before the storm turned this stretch of highway into a white grave. He half ran, half slid down the slope, grabbing at bare branches to slow his descent. The Cadillac came into view in pieces, chrome bumper first, then the distinctive tail fins, finally the whole mangled body wrapped around the oak like a lover's embrace. The front end had accordion folded, the driver's side crushed inward. Steam rose from the crumpled hood, which meant the engine had been running recently, within the last few hours. No skid marks on the road above, no tracks suggesting the driver had tried to brake or swerve. Bobby's radio crackled against his chest. "Unit 7, what's your status?" He couldn't answer. His throat had closed up. Duke stood on his hind legs, front paws on the driver's door, clawing at the window with enough force that his nails left scratches in the frost-covered glass. Blood spotted the snow beneath him. The dog's paws were torn, bleeding through the webbing between his toes. "Duke!" "Down," Bobby managed. His voice sounded foreign to his own ears. The dog ignored him, turned those brown eyes on Bobby instead, and whined a sound of pure desperation that Bobby had never heard from him before. Bobby approached the wreckage, each step feeling like wading through concrete. The driver's side window had spiderwebbed, but not shattered. Through the fractured glass, he could make out a shape, a person, slumped over the steering wheel. He pulled his flashlight from his belt, hand shaking so badly the beam danced across the snow, directed it through the window. The face was older, weathered by years and hardship, but Bobby would have known those features in his sleep. The same high forehead, the same slightly crooked nose broken in a bar fight 30 years ago, the same scar above the left eyebrow from when Bobby had accidentally hit him with a baseball bat at age 7. William Mitchell, his father. The radio crackled again. "Unit 7, requesting status update." Bobby's finger found the transmit button through muscle memory alone. "Code 3, single vehicle accident, Highway 77, mile marker 43. 1 victim, critical condition, need ambulance and backup immediately." "Copy that. Unit 7. Ambulance is 25 minutes out due to road conditions. Backup en route." 25 minutes. Bobby's field medical training kicked in automatically. In this temperature, with potential internal injuries, hypothermia would set in fast. 25 minutes might as well be forever. He tried the door, jammed shut. The frame bent inward from impact. The passenger side was no better. He'd have to break the window, risk showering the victim with glass. But there was no choice. Bobby pulled his baton, aimed for the window's corner. Duke's barking intensified, urgent and insistent. The dog pawed at something near the base of the door, a leather bag that had been thrown clear of the vehicle. Bobby knelt, unzipped it with numb fingers. Inside a wrapped Christmas present, red paper, green bow, slightly crushed. A gift tag dangled from the ribbon, and Bobby's flashlight beam caught the words written in familiar handwriting. "To Bobby, love, Dad." His chest constricted. Couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The world narrowed to that tag. those 4 words that he'd waited 16 years to see. He forced himself to look away, to dig deeper in the bag, found a stack of envelopes bound with a rubber band, all addressed to him at his home address, all in the same handwriting, postmarks spanning years 2010, 2012. None of them had ever arrived at his door. His father had written letters for 16 years and never mailed them. The glove compartment had sprung open in the crash. Bobby could see something taped to the dashboard through the window. A photograph. He pressed his face closer to the glass. It was a picture of a little boy on a bicycle, maybe 5 years old, red-faced and laughing. A man ran behind him, hands outstretched, ready to catch him if he fell. Bobby remembered that day, remembered the security of knowing someone was always there to catch him. He smashed the window. Glass cascaded inward, and Bobby reached through, fingers searching for a pulse at his father's neck. Found one weak, thready, but present. The skin was cold, body temperature dangerously low. Duke squeezed through the broken window, impossibly, and pressed himself against the unconscious man's chest, sharing body heat. Bobby's hands were shaking as he called it in. "Victim is alive. Repeat, victim is alive." Bobby worked on autopilot, the way his academy instructors had drilled into him during emergency response training. Check airway, check breathing, check circulation. His father's pulse was 38 beats per minute, far too slow. Body temperature had to be in the high 80s, stage 2 hypothermia. The man's lips had a bluish tint, and his breathing came in shallow, irregular gasps. "Dispatch! Victim has hypothermia, possible internal injuries. I need that ambulance now." Unit 7, advised ETA is now 30 minutes. Black ice on Route 34 is slowing response. 30 minutes. His father wouldn't last 30 minutes. Bobby stripped off his own jacket, tucked it around the unconscious man as best he could. Through the broken window, the driver's door was crushed too badly to open. He'd have to extract him through the window, risking spinal injury, or wait for the ambulance with proper equipment while his father's core temperature dropped another degree. Duke hadn't moved from his position against the victim's chest. The dog's body heat was probably the only thing keeping the man's heart beating. Bobby ran back to his patrol car, grabbed the emergency blanket and first aid kit. His hands fumbled with the supplies, dropping bandages twice before he got a grip on himself. Focus. This is just another victim, just another rescue. Except it wasn't. This was William Mitchell, the man who taught him to throw a baseball and change a tire and be a good cop. The man who'd walked away without a word and left Bobby to pick up the pieces of his mother's broken heart. He slid back down the embankment, nearly losing his footing twice. Through the window, he could see his father's face more clearly now. The years hadn't been kind. Deep lines carved around his mouth and eyes. His hair had gone completely gray, thinning at the crown. He'd lost weight, not the healthy kind, but the gaunt, hollow-cheeked look of someone who'd been skipping meals. His clothes were worn, patched at the elbows. The Carhartt jacket he wore had been expensive once, probably 20 years ago. Bobby reached through the window again, this time checking for other injuries. Found a massive contusion on the right side of his father's head, blood matting the gray hair. At least 3 ribs broken on the left side, maybe more. When Bobby pressed gently on the abdomen, his father's face contorted even in unconsciousness, internal bleeding probably. "Dad," Bobby said. and the word felt strange on his tongue after 16 years. "Dad, can you hear me?" No response. The pulse under Bobby's fingers remained weak and thready. He wedged the emergency blanket through the window as best he could, tucking it around his father's torso. Duke shifted to accommodate the blanket, but never stopped his vigil. His brown eyes kissed on the unconscious man's face with an intensity Bobby had seen before when the dog tracked scents. When he located victims, when he knew something his human partner didn't. "You knew," Bobby said to the dog. "Didn't you? You knew this car. Knew him?" Duke's tail thumped once against the seat. Bobby turned his attention back to the scene, forcing himself into investigator mode. The GPS unit mounted on the dashboard was still powered on, its screen cracked but functional. He angled his flashlight to read the display. Destination 847 Maple Street, Bobby's home address. His father had been coming to see him. The Christmas present on the passenger seat had been crushed when something heavy shifted during impact. Bobby carefully extracted it through the window, set it on the snow. The tag trembled in his shaking hands. His father's handwriting hadn't changed, still the same careful block letters. The way cops learned to write reports so they'd be legible in court. The glove compartment had sprung open, its contents scattered across the passenger floor. Bobby could see more envelopes, more letters. He reached in, pulled out the closest one, postmarked December 12th, 2009, the day after his father had disappeared. His frozen fingers struggled with the seal. Inside a single page covered in that familiar handwriting. "Day one without you. Watched you through the fence today at the academy graduation ceremony. You look so proud in your uniform, so much like your grandfather. I wanted to run to you, tell you everything, but I can't. I won't. You deserve better than the truth. You deserve your future. Forgive me for what I'm about to do. All my love, Dad." Bobby's vision blurred. He swiped at his eyes with the back of his hand, told himself it was just the cold making them water. Another envelope, dated 3 years later. He opened it. Day 95. "Saw you make detective today. 3 years faster than I did. Your mother would be so proud. I stood in the back of the ceremony hall. You walked right past me and didn't recognize me. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe I'm already dead to you. That's okay. As long as you're alive and whole and happy, I can be dead." There were dozens of letters, hundreds, maybe. Bobby grabbed another, this one from just last week. Day 5, 8:40. "The heart doctor says I have maybe 6 months, probably less. I've been putting this off for 16 years. But time's run out. I'm coming home. Bobby, coming to tell you the truth about December 24th, 2009. Coming to ask forgiveness for what I did. You deserve to know why I left, why I stayed away, why I loved you enough to make you hate me. I'll be there, Christmas Eve. God willing, you'll let me explain. Love, Dad." Bobby's radio crackled. Backup was 10 minutes out. His father's eyes fluttered open. The eyes that found Bobby's were clouded with pain and confusion, but there was recognition there. Unmistakable recognition. His father's lips moved, forming words that had no sound behind them. Bobby leaned closer, his ear nearly touching his father's mouth through the broken window. He could smell Old Spice aftershave, the same scent that used to cling to his father's uniform shirts. The scent Bobby had spent 16 years avoiding in store aisles because it brought too many memories. "Bobby," his father whispered, the word barely more than breath. "I'm sorry. Had to protect you." Then his eyes rolled back, and he went limp. "Dad," Bobby's hands found the pulse point again. Still there, but weaker. "Dad, stay with me. Don't you dare." The pulse stopped. Bobby's training kicked in before his brain could catch up. He couldn't do chest compressions through the window, couldn't get the right angle. He grabbed his baton, smashed more of the window away, clearing enough space, reached in, tilted his father's head back to open the airway, started compressions, counting in his head, 1, 2, 3, 4, 30 compressions, then 2 rescue breaths through the window. Duke howled, the sound echoing across the frozen landscape. Bobby compressed again, his hands pressing against ribs. He could feel breaking under the pressure. Had to keep going, had to bring him back. Couldn't lose him now. Not like this, not before he understood. "Don't leave me again," Bobby heard himself saying between compressions. "Don't you dare leave me again." A memory surfaced. Unbidden himself at 8 years old, lying on the garage floor with a training dummy, his father kneeling beside him demonstrating chest compressions. "Someday you might save a life, son. Could be a stranger, could be someone you love. You keep going until they come back or until someone tells you to stop. You never give up on a life." Bobby kept going, 90 seconds of compressions. His shoulders burned. Sweat ran down his back despite the freezing temperature. Then his father gasped, a wet, rattling sound. The pulse returned, weak but steady. Bobby sagged against the car, breathing hard. Duke licked the unconscious man's hand, whimpering. Headlights appeared on the road above. "Back up." Seconds later, paramedic Sarah Chen was sliding down the embankment, medical bag in hand. She'd known Bobby since grade school, had been 3 years ahead of him. She'd known his father, too. "Sweet Jesus," she breathed when she saw the victim's face. "Is that Bill Mitchell, Bobby? Is that your—" "Yeah," Bobby said. His voice sounded hollow. "It's him." Sarah went to work immediately, professional instincts overriding shock. She checked vitals, started an IV line through the window with practiced efficiency. Body temp is 89 degrees, BP is 60/40. He's in bad shape. Bobby, real bad. Another vehicle pulled up. Sheriff Tom Bradshaw, Bobby's boss. The older man took one look at the scene and got on his radio, calling for additional support and a helicopter medevac. "Weather is too bad for airlift," came the response. "Ground transport only." Sarah worked to stabilize the patient while Bobby stood back, useless now, his hands still shaking. Sheriff Bradshaw approached him, put a heavy hand on his shoulder. "Son, you need to step back. Let Sarah do her job." "He was coming to see me," Bobby said. The words came out flat, emotionless. Shock, probably. He was coming home. "I know." Bradshaw's grip tightened. Bobby, listen to me. We thought he was dead. Hell, most folks assumed he'd drunk himself into an early grave somewhere. But there've been sightings over the years. Someone matching his description, working under the table at the truck stop off Route 30, living in a motel out by the county line, never approaching anyone, never making contact. Bobby turned to stare at him. You knew he was alive, and you didn't tell me. We didn't know for sure. And every time someone went to check, he'd disappear." Bradshaw's face was grim. "The man clearly didn't want to be found, Bobby. We had to respect that. Respect The word came out sharp. He abandoned us, left my mother to... Bobby couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't say the words, left her to die alone. Sarah called out from the car, "I need help getting him out. The jaws of life won't be here for another 20 minutes, and we can't wait that long." Between the three of them and two more deputies who'd arrived, they managed to carefully extract William Mitchell through the enlarged window. Sarah had him on a backboard, neck braced, emergency blanket wrapped tight. The ambulance crew was ready with a gurney. As they lifted him, something fell from his jacket pocket, a small metal box the size of a deck of cards, with a keyhole but no key. It hit the snow with a muffled thud. Duke pounced on it immediately, picking it up in his mouth and bringing it to Bobby. "What's that?" Sarah asked. Bobby took the box from Duke's gentle jaws. It was old, battered, with a label taped to the top. The label read, in his father's handwriting, "Open only if I don't make it. The truth about a December 24th, 2009. Sheriff Bradshaw leaned in to look. His face went pale. "Bobby, I think you need to see something in my car, now." They trudged up the embankment while Sarah and the ambulance crew secured Bobby's father for transport in the sheriff's vehicle. Bradshaw pulled up a file on his laptop, a case file. "The Henderson accident," Bradshaw said quietly. "December 24th, 2008, hit and run on Highway 77. Victim was Tommy Henderson, 19 years old. Died 3 days later from his injuries." Bobby's stomach dropped. He remembered that accident. It had been all over the news that Christmas. A promising college student struck down by a drunk driver who'd fled the scene. The case had gone cold for weeks, until your father confessed, Bradshaw said. Walked into the station on Christmas Day, 2009, and said he'd been the driver. Said he'd fallen asleep at the wheel, struck the Henderson bill, and panicked. Drove home, then spent the night wrestling with his conscience. He turned himself in, but he wasn't drunk, Bobby said slowly. The report said blood alcohol was 0. The DA offered a plea deal, 15 years for vehicular manslaughter. Your father took it. Served 11 years, got out early for good behavior 4 years ago. We thought he'd left the state. 4 years ago. Bobby's mother had still been alive 4 years ago. His father had been released from prison and hadn't come home even then. Why? Bobby asked. Why confess if he wasn't drunk? Why take a plea deal? Bradshaw's expression was troubled. I've asked myself that question for 16 years. Your father was the most careful driver I ever knew. Korean War veteran, mechanic, never so much as a speeding ticket. It never made sense that he'd fall asleep at the wheel. Sarah appeared at the car window. We need to move. Now. His BP is dropping. Bobby climbed into the ambulance with Duke beside him. The dog wouldn't leave, and no one had the heart to force him. As they pulled away, Bobby clutched the small metal box in his hands, feeling its weight like an accusation. The hospital was 45 minutes away in good weather. Tonight, with ice on the roads, it took over an hour. Bobby sat beside his father's stretcher, watching Sarah work. She'd inserted a second IV line, administered medications whose names Bobby didn't catch. The monitors beeped steadily, irregularly. His father's face had gone gray, his breathing shallow. Talk to him, Sarah said quietly, even unconscious. They can sometimes hear. Bobby didn't know what to say. 16 years of anger and hurt and confusion, sat like a stone in his chest. But he reached out and took his father's cold hand anyway. "I don't understand," he said. "Mom died calling your name. She wanted you there, and you weren't. I needed you, and you weren't there." His voice cracked. "Why'd you leave us, Dad?" No response except the steady beep of the heart monitor. Duke laid his head on the stretcher, as close to the unconscious man as he could get. The dog's eyes were fixed on Bobby's father's face with an intensity that was almost human. "You knew him before," Bobby said to the dog. "Didn't you 5 years ago, when I found you on Highway 77 half-starved and abandoned? You weren't abandoned at all. He left you there for me to find." Sarah glanced over. "What are you talking about?" "Same stretch of highway, same location, almost to the foot. I found Duke right where my dad crashed today." Bobby's hand tightened on his father's. "He was your dog first, wasn't he, Dad? And you gave him to me?" The ambulance hit a rough patch, and everyone grabbed for handholds. On the stretcher, William Mitchell's eyes fluttered again. His lips moved. Bobby leaned close. "Dad, can you hear me?" "Tommy," his father whispered. The name came out strangled, full of pain. "Tommy Henderson, tell him. Tell his family I'm sorry." Then the heart monitor alarm screamed. His father was coding. Sarah shouted for the driver to pull over. She started chest compressions while Bobby sat frozen, helpless. The ambulance screeched to a stop on the shoulder. Sarah worked with desperate efficiency, administering drugs, checking vitals, continuing compressions. 3 minutes felt like hours. Finally, the monitor settled back into an irregular but steady rhythm. Sarah sagged against the wall, breathing hard. "He's stable. For now." They continued to the hospital. Bobby sat in stunned silence, his father's words echoing in his head. Tommy Henderson, the boy who died, the hit and run. At the hospital, William Mitchell was rushed into surgery. The surgeon, Dr. Patricia Walsh, was grim-faced as she explained the situation. Multiple rib fractures, punctured lung, severe head trauma, and internal bleeding. "We'll do our best, but his condition is critical. There's something else." She paused, checking her notes. "Did you know your father has advanced heart disease?" Bobby shook his head mutely. "His chart shows he was diagnosed 2 years ago, declined treatment, no insurance. He has maybe 6 months left, even if we fix everything else wrong with him right now. He's been living on borrowed time." 6 months. His father had been dying and hadn't told anyone. Bobby was directed to a waiting room. Duke lay at his feet, unusually subdued. The small metal box sat on the chair beside Bobby. He picked it up, turned it over in his hands. The lock was simple, old. He could probably pry it open with a screwdriver. Sheriff Bradshaw appeared in the doorway, holding a folder. "Bobby, I need to show you something. The Henderson case file, all of it." They spread the documents across a waiting room table, police reports, witness statements, autopsy results. Bobby read through them with growing confusion. "The accident happened at 11:47 p.m. on Highway 7, Bradshaw said. "Your father walked into the station at 8 a.m. on Christmas Day and confessed. But look at this." He pointed to a detail in the report. "The vehicle identified at the scene wasn't your father's Cadillac. It was a pickup truck, light-colored, never identified. Then why did he confess?" "I don't know. The DA was happy to close the case. Tommy Henderson's family got closure. Your father went to prison. Bradshaw leaned back a bit. But there's more. Tommy Henderson's mother, Dorothy, called the station 2 weeks ago. Said she found her son's old cell phone in storage. It had dash cam footage from that night. Bobby's mouth went dry. Where's the footage? She's bringing it in tomorrow. Said she needed to see Bill Mitchell first. Needed to tell him something. That's why I tried calling you this afternoon. Dorothy was coming in to file a report. Then we got the call about the accident. The waiting room door opened. Sarah entered, still in her paramedic uniform. Bobby, I'm off shift. Thought you could use some company. She sat down beside him, saw the case file spread out. What's all this? My father confessed to a hit-and-run 16 years ago. Bobby said, the same night he disappeared, spent 11 years in prison for it, but the evidence doesn't match his story. Sarah picked up one of the reports, scanned it. Her face went pale. Bobby, the location of the Henderson accident, mile marker 43, Highway 7. Yeah, same place where Dad crashed today. No, Sarah's hands were shaking. Same place where you found Duke 5 years ago. They stared at each other as the implications settled in. The surgery took 7 hours. Walsh emerged just after midnight, exhausted. He made it through? Barely. The next 24 hours are critical. He's in a medically induced coma. Can I see him? 5 minutes. He won't know you're there. Bobby stood in the ICU doorway, looking at the man in the bed. Tubes and wires connected his father to machines that beeped and hummed. He looked small, fragile, decades older than 71. Duke pushed past Bobby's legs and went straight to the bed. Laying his head on the mattress beside the unconscious man's hand, Bobby approached slowly, pulled up a chair. He still held the locked metal box. I don't know what you did, Dad, he said quietly, but I'm going to find out. Bobby sat in the ICU waiting room at 2 a.m, the locked metal box in his lap and exhaustion pulling at his bones. Sleep was impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his father's gray face, heard that whispered apology. Duke lay at his feet, head on his paws, eyes half open and watchful. Sarah had gone home an hour ago, promising to return in the morning. Sheriff Bradshaw had left around midnight, muttering about making phone calls. The hospital was quiet, except for the occasional overhead page and the soft squeak of nurses' shoes on linoleum. Bobby pulled out his pocket knife, examined the lock on the box. It was old, rusted at the edges. One good twist and it would probably snap. His hand hovered over the lock, then pulled back. His father had labeled it clearly open, only if I don't make it. William Mitchell was still alive, still breathing, still fighting in the surgical recovery unit down the hall. But he'd also been hiding secrets for 16 years. Secrets that had cost him his family, his freedom, his life. Bobby twisted the knife. The lock snapped. Inside the box was a folded letter, a USB drive, and a small leather notebook bound with a rubber band. Bobby unfolded the letter first. His father's handwriting covered both sides of the page, the words cramped and urgent. Bobby, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I need you to understand what I did and why. December 24th, 2009. You were 22, fresh from the police academy. You'd been at McCready's bar celebrating with your friends. I followed you home because I was worried. You'd been drinking, son. Not much, but enough. You got behind the wheel of your truck anyway. I followed at a distance in the Cadillac. Then it happened on Highway 77. Tommy Henderson was broken down on the side of the road, hood up, flashers on. You were watching the road, trying to stay between the lines. You didn't see him step into your lane, waving for help. Your truck clipped him, not head on, just the mirror. But it was enough. He went down hard, hit his head on the guardrail. I saw the whole thing. I pulled over right behind you. You got out, saw what happened, went into shock. Tommy was still breathing but unconscious. You kept saying, "I killed him, I killed him." I made a choice in about 10 seconds. Bobby, I told you to get in your truck and go home. I told you I'd handle it. You were too shocked to argue. You just left. I called 911. When the police arrived, I told them I'd been driving, that I fell asleep at the wheel and struck Tommy. They arrested me on the spot. My blood alcohol was 0, but I stuck to my story. The DA offered me a plea deal, 15 years for vehicular manslaughter. I took it without hesitation. You're probably wondering why. Why confess to something I didn't do? Why throw away my life, my family, everything? Because you're my son. You were 22 years old with your whole career ahead of you. One drunk driving accident would have ended all of that. Prison time, criminal record, everything you'd worked for, gone. I couldn't let that happen. I chose to save you the only way I knew how. Your mother knew the truth. She begged me not to do it, said we'd get you a good lawyer, fight it together. But I'd made up my mind. Tommy Henderson's family deserved justice. You deserved a future. I could give you both by taking the blame. I made your mother promise not to tell you, made her swear. She kept that promise, even though it killed her. I know she died waiting for me to come home. I know you blamed me for that. You should. I destroyed our family to save you, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. The footage on the USB drive shows everything. Tommy's dash cam was running that night. It shows your truck, shows the accident. I made sure this footage never made it to trial. If it had, prosecutors would have investigated further. Found you. I couldn't let that happen. So I pled guilty and buried the evidence. Tommy Henderson died 3 days after the accident. His family got someone to blame, someone to hate. That someone was me, and I accepted it. It was the least I could do. I served 11 years, got out 4 years ago. I wanted to come home then. Bobby, God, how I wanted to. But what would I say, sorry? I let you think I abandoned you, but really, I went to prison for your crime. How could I do that to you? The guilt would have destroyed you. Better you hate me than hate yourself. So I stayed away, watched you from a distance, saw you make detective, saw you build a life. I lived in cheap motels, worked under the table, sent money when I could through anonymous channels. I bought that German Shepherd puppy when I saw him abandoned on Highway 77, same spot where it all happened. Felt like fate. I fed him for months, then left him where I knew you'd patrol. He'd protect you better than I ever could. The heart doctor says I have maybe 6 months. Time to stop being a coward. Time to tell you the truth. I'm coming home. Bobby, coming to face whatever you want to throw at me. Anger, hate. I deserve it all. But you deserve to know why I left. If I don't make it to you, if you're reading this after I'm gone, please know I loved you every single day. Please forgive yourself for what happened that night. It was an accident, nothing more, And please, please take care of Duke. He's been watching over you for me all these years. All my love, Dad." Bobby's hands were shaking so badly the paper rattled. He read it again, then a third time. The words didn't change. He'd killed Tommy Henderson. Not killed. The rational part of his brain knew that, clipped him with a truck mirror in an accident. But Tommy had died. 19 years old. Whole life ahead of him. Dead. Because Bobby had driven after drinking. His stomach lurched. He barely made it to the bathroom before he was sick. When he came back, Duke was sitting up, alert. The dog nuzzled Bobby's hand, whined softly. "I killed someone," Bobby whispered to the dog, "and Dad went to prison for it. Gave up everything." He picked up the USB drive with numb fingers, found a laptop charger station in the waiting room, plugged it in. The drive contained a single video file, timestamp dated December 24th, 2009, at 11:47 p.m. The footage was dark, grainy, but clear enough. Tommy Henderson's dash cam showed the highway from his car's perspective. Tommy was visible in the driver's seat, then got out, went to the hood. The camera showed him looking under the hood, then glancing at the road. A truck approached. Bobby could see it was a light-colored pickup, could see the police academy graduation tassel hanging from the rearview mirror. His truck. Tommy stepped into the road, waving his arms. The truck swerved. The mirror caught Tommy's shoulder, spun him around. He fell backward, his head striking the metal guardrail with a sickening crack. The truck stopped. A figure got out, a young Bobby, visible for just a moment in the headlights. Then another car pulled up, the Cadillac. An older man got out, went to Bobby, spoke urgently. Young Bobby got back in his truck and drove away. The older man went to Tommy, checked for a pulse, pulled out a cell phone. The video ended. Bobby sat staring at the blank screen, the evidence his father had kept hidden for 16 years. Evidence that would have identified Bobby as the driver, evidence that his father had buried to protect him. He opened the leather notebook. It was a diary. Entries dating from 2009 to present. His father had documented everything every day in prison, every glimpse of Bobby from afar after his release, every moment of imposed exile. Day 1, Christmas Day, 2009, arraignment today. Bobby doesn't know I've been arrested yet. Margaret does. She's not speaking to me. I've broken her heart to save our son's future. Worth it. Day 487. Bobby made detective. Saw it in the paper. Said they wanted to call. But what would I say? He thinks I abandoned him. Better that way. Day 2. 190. 6 years today. Margaret has cancer. Terminal. She wrote to me. Asked me to tell Bobby the truth before she dies. I can't. I won't lay that on him while he's watching his mother die. Some truths are too heavy. Day 4 of 15. Released today. 11 years of my life gone. Thought about going home, but I can't. Bobby has built a life without me. He's better off. Day 4 saw Bobby from across the street today. He's become a good man, a good cop. Everything I hoped he'd be. He walked right past me and didn't recognize me. I'm a ghost to my own son. Day 5, 840. Heart doctor says 6 months, maybe less. Out of time, have to tell him. Have to let him forgive me or condemn me. But he deserves the truth. The entries were filled with small details, Bobby's promotions, his cases, his daily routines. His father had been watching him for 16 years, documenting every moment from a distance. The last entry was dated at December 23rd, yesterday. Today's the day. Driving to Bobby's house. I have the letters, the evidence, everything. I'm terrified he'll hate me, terrified he'll forgive me. Both would hurt. But this secret has poisoned our family long enough. Time to come home, time to face my son. God help me." Bobby closed the notebook. His hands had stopped shaking, replaced by a cold numbness that spread through his chest. His father had sacrificed everything, family, freedom, his entire life, to protect Bobby from a secret that Bobby now had to carry alone. Or did he? Sheriff Bradshaw had mentioned Dorothy Henderson bringing in new evidence. Tommy's dash cam footage. She'd found it independently, which meant the truth was coming out regardless. The question was what Bobby would do about it. He could come forward, admit that he'd been driving that night, face the consequences 16 years late, clear his father's name, or he could stay silent. Let his father's sacrifice mean something. Let the lie stand. Duke's head lifted suddenly, ears pricked forward. A moment later, a nurse appeared in the doorway. "Officer Mitchell, your father's awake. He's asking for you." Bobby stood frozen in the ICU doorway, unable to make his feet move forward. His father lay in the hospital bed, eyes open but clouded with pain and medication. Tubes ran from his arms. Monitors beeped steadily, and an oxygen mask covered the lower half of his face. When William Mitchell's eyes found Bobby, they filled with tears. Duke pushed past Bobby's legs and went straight to the bed, tail wagging cautiously. The dog's presence seemed to calm the patient. William's hand, shaking and bruised from IV insertions, reached out to scratch behind Duke's ears. "Hey, boy," William whispered through the oxygen mask. His voice was raw, barely audible. "Good boy." Bobby finally moved, crossing the room in slow, measured steps. He pulled a chair to the bedside and sat, the notebook still clutched in his hands. Father and son stared at each other across 16 years of silence. "You read it," William said. Not a question. The broken lock on the metal box sat on the bedside table. Bobby nodded. His throat was too tight for words. "I'm sorry." William's eyes closed, tears tracking down his weathered cheeks. "I'm sorry for all of it, for leaving, for lying, for letting you hate me. Why didn't you tell me?" Bobby's voice came out rough, angry. "Mom died calling your name. She wanted you there, and you let her die alone because of a lie. She knew the truth. She understood why I couldn't come home." William struggled to sit up, grimaced at the pain in his ribs. "If I'd come back, you would have known something was wrong. You would have investigated. You're too good a cop not to, and you would have figured it out. So you let me think you were a coward instead. Let me spend 16 years hating you." "Yes." William's hand reached for Bobby's, stopped halfway. "Better you hate me than hate yourself. I watched what guilt did to you that night. Bobby, you were in shock. Kept saying you'd killed him. If you'd carried that for 16 years, it would have destroyed you." Bobby yanked his hand away. "You destroyed our family instead. I saved you." William's voice gained strength, urgency. "You were 22. You'd worked your whole life to become a cop. One mistake, one accident would have ended everything. Prison time, criminal record, everything you'd worked for, gone. That was my choice to make, not yours. You were my son. My choice was already made the day you were born." William's breathing was labored now, the monitors beeping faster. A father protects his children. That's what we do. A nurse entered, checked the monitors, gave Bobby a warning look. He needs to stay calm. His heart can't take stress right now. And William waved her off weakly. I'm dying anyway. Let me talk to my son. You're not dying, Bobby said automatically. I am. Heart disease. 6 months, maybe less. Even before the accident. William's eyes held Bobby's. I wasn't coming home to reconcile. Bobby, I was coming home to say goodbye and to give you the truth. Before I went, Tommy Henderson's mother found the dash cam footage. Bobby said, she called the station 2 weeks ago. The truth was coming out whether you wanted it to or not. William's face went pale. Dorothy found it. God, I thought I'd gotten rid of all the evidence. You can't bury truth forever, Dad. It always comes back. Then she knows. William's voice broke. She knows I lied to her for 16 years, that I let her blame me for her son's death when it was an accident. Bobby interrupted. It was an accident. That's what the new evidence shows. Tommy was impaired that night. Prescription painkillers in his system. He walked into traffic. Even a sober driver might not have avoided him. William stared at him. What? The autopsy was incomplete. Tommy's family hid the toxicology results because they were ashamed. But Dorothy came forward last month, said her husband told her the truth before he died. Tommy had taken his father's pain medication, was impaired when he got out of his car. Bobby leaned forward. You went to prison for an accident that might not have been anyone's fault. The heart monitor's beeping accelerated. William's breathing came in gasps. You mean all these years? Tommy was already... The medical examiner reviewed the case. Tommy's cause of death was blunt force trauma from hitting the guardrail, not from the impact with the truck. With his level of impairment and the circumstances, no charges would have been filed against any driver. William's face crumbled. I gave up 16 years for nothing. You gave up 16 years for me, Bobby corrected. That's not nothing. But if I'd known, if I'd just waited for the full investigation, you made a split-second decision to protect your son. You didn't know about the toxicology. You only knew what you saw me hitting someone with my truck. Bobby's voice softened. You did what any father would do. No. William shook his head, tears flowing freely now. Any father would have gotten their son a good lawyer, would have fought to prove it was an accident. I took the coward's way out. I ran away by running toward prison. You'd think that was cowardly. Bobby pulled out the diary, opened it to a random page. Day 2/8, Bobby's birthday today. Bought a cupcake at the gas station, ate it in my motel room, sang happy birthday to myself, wondered if he remembers I exist. Bobby's voice cracked. You lived in hell for 16 years to save me from guilt. That's not cowardice. Dad, that's sacrifice. William reached out again, and this time Bobby took his hand. The skin was cold, the grip weak, but it was real. His father's hand in his after 16 years. I watched you grow up from a distance, William said. Saw you become the man I always knew you'd be. Every promotion, every commendation, every life you saved, I was so proud. Bobby, so proud. I needed you there, not watching from some parking lot across town. I needed my father. I know. I'm sorry. William's grip tightened slightly. But if I'd been there, you would have always wondered if you deserved your success. You would have questioned every achievement, thinking maybe people were just being to the cop who killed someone. This way. You knew everything you accomplished was yours. You earned it. I would have traded every achievement to have you at Mom's funeral. William flinched as if struck. That was the hardest day of my life, harder than any day in prison. I stood on the hill overlooking the cemetery, watched you give the eulogy, watched you break down on her casket, wanted to run to you so badly, hold you like I did when you were little, but I couldn't. She'd made me promise not to tell you until I was dying. I kept that promise. She should have made you promise to come home instead. She tried, God, how she tried. Wrote to me every week in prison, begging me to appeal, to get a lawyer, to fight. But I couldn't risk it. Couldn't risk some sharp prosecutor or investigator digging deeper and finding you. The door opened. Sheriff Bradshaw entered, his expression grim. Behind him was an elderly woman with silver hair and a cane, Dorothy Henderson. She moved slowly, leaning heavily on the cane, her eyes fixed on the man in the hospital bed. William saw her and went rigid. Mrs. Henderson, Dorothy. I'm so sorry. Dorothy held up a hand, silencing him. She approached the bed slowly, studying William's face. When she spoke, her voice was steady, but weighted with years of grief. 16 years I blamed you, William Mitchell. 16 years I hated the man who killed my son. She paused at the foot of the bed. My husband Richard died last year. Before he passed, he told me the truth about Tommy's toxicology report, about the pills, about how we hid it because we were ashamed. Your son didn't deserve to die, William said. No matter what was in his system, I'm sorry I couldn't save him. You didn't kill him? Dorothy's voice cracked. But you let me think you did. You stood in court and accepted blame for something that wasn't your fault. Why? William's eyes flicked to Bobby, then back to Dorothy. Because someone needed to be accountable. Your family needed justice. This was the only way I could give it to you. Dorothy moved closer, leaned heavily on her cane. You're protecting someone. Even now, you're protecting someone. Her gaze shifted to Bobby. It was you, wasn't it? You were driving that night. Bobby's world tilted. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The ICU room went silent, except for the steady beep of monitors. Bobby felt every eye on him, Dorothy's knowing gaze, his father's pleading look, Sheriff Bradshaw's careful neutrality. Duke pressed against Bobby's leg, a solid presence in a world that had suddenly gone liquid and unstable. Mrs. Henderson, William started, but Dorothy cut him off with a sharp gesture. Don't protect him anymore, Bill. I've spent 16 years mourning my son and hating you. I deserve the truth, all of it. Bobby stood slowly, his legs unsteady. He looked at his father, saw the fear in those tired eyes. Not fear for himself. William Mitchell had already given up everything. This was fear for Bobby. Fear that the sacrifice would be undone, that 16 years of suffering would mean nothing. But Bobby was done with lies. Yes, ma'am, he said, his voice steady, despite the trembling in his hands. I was driving that night. I'd been drinking, not much, but enough that I shouldn't have been behind the wheel. I hit your son with my truck mirror. He fell and struck his head on the guardrail. My father took the blame to save my career. Dorothy's face remained impassive, but her knuckles went white on the cane. Sheriff Bradshaw exhaled slowly. his hand moving unconsciously toward his radio before stopping. The legal implications were piling up by the second obstruction of justice. False testimony, conspiracy. "You let your father go to prison for you," Dorothy said flatly, "for 11 years. I didn't know." Bobby's voice broke. "I swear to God, I didn't know. He told me to go home that night, said he'd handle it." I was in shock, not thinking clearly. I went home. The next day, I heard about the accident on the news, heard that someone had confessed. They didn't release the name immediately. When I found out it was my dad, I assumed he really had been driving, that there'd been 2 accidents that night, or I'd been confused about what I saw. You never questioned it. I questioned everything. But my father disappeared. My mother wouldn't talk about it. Everyone said he'd confessed, taken a plea deal. Why would an innocent man do that? Bobby's hands clenched into fists. I spent 16 years thinking he abandoned us out of shame, hating him for leaving us to deal with the aftermath alone. Dorothy turned to William. "And you let him think that? Let your own son hate you?" "Yes." William's voice was barely a whisper. "Better he hate me than hate himself. The guilt would have destroyed him." "Dorothy," I saw it in his eyes that night. He kept saying, "I killed him, I killed him." He was 22 years old. His whole life was ahead of him. "And what about my son's life?" Dorothy's voice rose, sharp with old pain. "Tommy was 19. He had his whole life ahead of him, too." "I know, God. I know. I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't bring him back." Dorothy's eyes were wet now, but no tears fell. "Tommy made mistakes that night, took pills he shouldn't have taken, stepped into traffic when he should have stayed by his car. But he was my baby boy, and he's gone." "Mrs. Henderson," Bobby said, stepping forward. "I know I can't make this right. Nothing can bring your son back. But I want you to know I've spent every day since becoming a cop trying to save people, trying to be worthy of the second chance my father gave me. I've pulled kids from burning buildings, talked down suicides, caught murderers. I'm not saying that balances the scales. Nothing ever could. But I've tried to honor Tommy's memory by protecting other people's sons and daughters." Dorothy looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she did something Bobby never expected. She reached out and slapped him across the face. The crack echoed in the small room. Bobby's head snapped to the side, his cheek burning. He didn't move, didn't defend himself. He deserved worse. "My son was 19 years old," Dorothy said, her voice shaking. "He wanted to be a teacher. He was good with kids, patient and kind. He would have made a difference in this world." "Yes, ma'am, you took that from him, from us, from all the students he would have taught, all the lives he would have touched. Yes, ma'am. And your father gave up his freedom so you could have yours." Dorothy's voice dropped to nearly a whisper. 16 years, Bill? You gave up 16 years. William nodded, unable to speak. Dorothy turned back to Bobby. "The statute of limitations on vehicular manslaughter in Nebraska is 10 years. You can't be prosecuted anymore. Did you know that?" Bobby nodded slowly. Sheriff Bradshaw had mentioned it during their conversation at the hospital. "So legally, you're free. Your father's sacrifice bought you that." Dorothy's hand tightened on her cane. "But morally, you tell me, Officer Mitchell, what does morality demand?" Bobby had been asking himself the same question for hours. The truth, accountability, whatever consequences come from that, even if it means losing your badge, your career, everything your father sacrificed for it. Yes. Why? Why? Why would you throw away what cost him so much? Bobby looked at his father, saw the anguish in his face. Because he taught me that being a good cop means standing up for what's right, even when it costs you everything. He lived that lesson. Time I did too. Sheriff Bradshaw cleared his throat. Bobby, before you say anything else, you should know anything you say now, in front of me, becomes part of the official record. I'll have to file a report. The DA will review. There will be consequences. I understand, sir. Your career is over. Best case scenario, you resign quietly. Worst case, charges for obstruction, making false statements over the years. You'll never work in law enforcement again. I understand. William struggled to sit up, ignoring the pain. Bobby, no, don't do this. Don't throw away everything You taught me honor, Dad. You taught me that the truth matters, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Bobby's voice strengthened. I've been living a lie for 16 years. Maybe I didn't know it, but I've been benefiting from your sacrifice every day, every commendation, every promotion, every time someone called me Officer Mitchell with respect that was built on your suffering. I can't accept that anymore. Dorothy sank into the other chair, her cane clattering to the floor. Tommy's father said something before he died. He said he forgave the driver, that accidents happen, and hate was eating him alive. He wanted to let it go. She looked up at Bobby, her eyes big but dry. I didn't understand how he could forgive, but how I see you are barely more than a boy yourself. You made a terrible mistake, and you've been trying to atone for it every day since, even without knowing what you were atoning for. That doesn't erase what I did. No, nothing erases it. Tommy is still gone. My husband mourned himself into an early grave. I've spent 16 years as the mother of a dead son, defined by my grief. Dorothy's voice hardened. But Bill Mitchell gave up his life for you, suffered in silence, watched his wife die from a distance, lived in poverty and exile. And for what? So you could throw it away now. Bobby's certainty wavered. I don't know what else to do. You do what your father wanted. You live. You be a good cop. You save lives. Dorothy pushed herself to her feet, retrieved her cane. You honor my son's memory by making sure his death accidental, senseless death, wasn't for nothing. How is covering up the truth honoring his memory? The truth, Dorothy said carefully, is that my son took pills, became impaired, and walked into traffic. The truth is that any driver, sober or not, might not have avoided him. The truth is that his death was a tragedy, not a crime. The medical examiner confirmed that. The new investigation concluded that. She moved to the bed, placed her hand on Williams. The other truth is that this man sacrificed everything out of love. That kind of love shouldn't be wasted on pointless confession 16 years too late. Sheriff Bradshaw spoke up. Dorothy's right about the medical examiner's report. It came through this morning while you were in surgery. Bill? Tommy Henderson's death has been officially ruled accidental. Contributing factors were impairment and the location of the head injury. The impact from the vehicle was minimal, not fatal. Bobby felt the words like a physical blow. You mean I didn't kill him? The guardrail killed him, Bradshaw said quietly. The truck impact spun him into the rail, but with his level of impairment, he likely would have fallen anyway. The ME said even if no vehicle had been present, Tommy's decision to walk into traffic while impaired made the fatal injury nearly inevitable. William was crying openly now, his whole body shaking. All these years, all this time, I thought you were saving me from being a killer. Bobby finished. But I was never a killer. Just a kid who made a bad decision that happened to coincide with someone else's bad decision. Doesn't change that I was driving impaired, Bobby said. Doesn't change that I broke the law. No, Bradshaw agreed, but it changes everything else. You weren't charged at the time. Can't be charged now. Your father's confession was for a crime that legally never existed. Dorothy returned to Bobby, stood directly in front of him. I came here today to tell Bill that I forgive him, that I'm sorry for the years he spent in prison for something that wasn't his fault, something he didn't do. I'm asking you, both of you, to forgive yourselves. Tommy's death was an accident, a terrible, heartbreaking accident. But it wasn't murder, it wasn't even negligent homicide. Given the circumstances, I still drove drunk. And you've spent 16 years making up for it, even without knowing. You've saved how many lives? Officer Mitchell, 47, Bradshaw supplied. 47 documented rescues in 14 years of service. Dorothy's face softened. 47 lives, Psalm, 47 families who still have their loved ones because of you. That's how you honor Tommy's memory. Not by destroying yourself and making your father's sacrifice meaningless. Bobby looked at his father, saw the hope dawning in those tired eyes. You really think Tommy would want this? I think Tommy would want fewer broken families in this world, Dorothy said. I think he'd want you and your father to have the years you lost. I think he'd wanted his death to mean something beyond just more pain and more suffering. She pulled an envelope from her purse, handed it to Bobby. This is from Tommy's phone, a video he recorded a few days before he died, talking about his plans for the future, teaching kids, making a difference. Watch it sometime. Remember him as he was young, hopeful, full of dreams. Don't remember him as the reason you destroyed your life. Bobby took the envelope with shaking hands. There's something else, Dorothy continued. After Tommy died, my younger son Marcus spiraled. He was 11 when he lost his brother. Started getting in trouble, running with bad crowds. We were losing him. She turned to William. Then someone started mentoring him. Anonymous scholarship money appeared. Someone helped him with homework, kept him out of gangs, got him into college. He graduated last May with an engineering degree. William's face went pale. I didn't know who it was until a month ago. Dorothy said, Bill called me, said he was dying, needed to confess, told me he'd been watching over Marcus for years, using what little money he had to give my surviving son a future. Bobby stared at his father. You've been supporting Marcus Henderson, Tommy's brother. William nodded weakly. I couldn't save Tommy, but I could save Marcus. It was the least I could do. The least. Dorothy's voice broke. Bill, you gave my son his life back. Marcus was heading down a dark path. You turned him around. He's a good man now, a successful man, because of you. I want Bobby to meet him, William said. Marcus he's like another son to me. I've watched him grow up the same way I watched Bobby, from a distance, but with so much love. Dorothy smiled through her tears. He'd like that. He knows the whole story now, knows what Bill did for him, what Bill sacrificed. He wants to thank both of you, both of us. Your brothers, in a way, connected by tragedy and sacrifice and love. Dorothy looked between Bobby and William. Tommy's gone, but maybe something good can come from his death after all. Two sons who get their father back, a father who gets to come home, a family stitched together from broken pieces. Sheriff Bradshaw stepped forward. For what it's worth, I'm closing the Henderson case. The medical examiner's new report is definitive accidental death. No criminal negligence. Bill's confession is expunged. Bobby's involvement, such as it was, falls outside statute of limitations and isn't supported by evidence of criminal intent or negligence under the circumstances. He looked at Bobby seriously. You keep your badge. You've earned it 47 times over. Your father's sacrifice won't be wasted, and you both get a second chance most people never see. William reached for Bobby's hand again. Pushki. This time Bobby took it without hesitation, holding tight to the cold, weak fingers. I'm sorry, William whispered, for all of it, for the pain, the lies, the years lost. I'm sorry, too, Dad, for hating you, for not trusting that you had a reason, for not being there when Mom died. Bobby's voice cracked. For not looking for you. You're here now. That's all that matters. Dorothy placed her hand over both of theirs. Forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves. I forgive you both. Now, you need to forgive each other and yourselves. In the corner, Duke's tail thumped against the floor. The dog had stayed quiet through the entire conversation, but now he stood, stretched, and rested his chin on the bed beside William's hand. This dog saved my life today, William said, scratching behind Duke's ears, just like he's been saving Bobby's for years. You gave him to me, Bobby said. Didn't you 5 years ago, on the same stretch of highway? You left him there for me to find. He was mine first. Found him as a puppy, right after I got out. Fed him, trained him, loved him. But I couldn't give him a real home. So I gave him to you. William smiled weakly. He's been my way of watching over you, protecting you when I couldn't be there. He's a good boy. The best, Bobby agreed. He brought you back to me. Dad knew something was wrong, knew it was you in that car. He saved your life. Then we're even. I saved yours. He saved mine. That's what family does. Dorothy wiped her eyes. I'll leave you two alone. But Bobby, Marcus wants to meet you. He's waiting outside. I'd like that. After she left, Bobby and his father sat in silence, hands still clasped. There was so much to say, 16 years of words bottled up, but somehow the silence felt right comfortable, healing. Finally, William spoke. Will you let me come home? You never left, Dad. Not really. You've been with me every day. Bobby squeezed his father's hand. But yes, come home. Please, come home. William Mitchell spent 3 weeks in the hospital. The surgery had been successful, but his body was weak from years of neglect and malnutrition. Bobby took leave from work and stayed by his father's side every day. Duke curled up on a blanket in the corner. They talked about everything the years lost, the moments missed, the weight of secrets that had nearly crushed them both. On the 4th day, Marcus Henderson came to visit. Bobby was alone in the room when the young man appeared in the doorway. He was 27, tall and lean with dark hair and his brother's kind eyes. He held his ball cap in his hands, twisting it nervously. "Officer Mitchell." Bobby stood, extended his hand. "Bobby, please." They shook hands, both awkward, unsure. Marcus looked at the empty hospital bed. "Where's Bill?" "Physical therapy. They've got him walking a few steps at a time." And Bobby gestured to a chair. "He talks about you constantly. Says you're the best thing that came out of the worst day of his life." Marcus sat down heavily. "I didn't know. All those years, this anonymous benefactor helping me, paying for est prep, sending money for books and clothes. My mom kept saying it was a church charity. I believed her." He looked up at Bobby. "It was your father, the man my family blamed for killing Tommy. He was trying to make something good come from something terrible. My brother died." Marcus's voice was steady, but weighted. "That's a fact I've lived with for 16 years. For a long time, I was angry. Angry at the drunk driver who killed him. Angry at Tommy for being out that night. Angry at God for taking him. That anger nearly destroyed me. My father told me you were heading down a bad path. I was. Shoplifting, vandalism, running with kids who carried knives. I was 13 and didn't care if I lived or died." Marcus smiled slightly. "Then this guy showed up at the community center where I hung out. Older guy. Quiet, always working on something. He started teaching me to fix cars. Never pushed, never preached. Just showed me that working with my hands, building something, could be better than breaking things. That was Dad. I didn't know who he was. He called himself Will Mason, said he was a retired mechanic, volunteering his time. We became friends. He was the only adult who didn't look at me with pity for being Tommy's little brother." Marcus's voice cracked. "He saved my life, Bobby. I was about to steal a car with some guys. Would have been my third strike. Would have sent me to juvie. Bill stopped me, told me I was better than that. Said my brother wouldn't want me throwing my life away. He was right. I know that now. But at 13, all I knew was that someone believed in me. Someone saw past the angry kid to who I could become." Marcus wiped his eyes. "He paid for my college. Did you know that $50,000 over 4 years? I thought it was a scholarship. Found out last month it was Bill Mitchell, sending money from jobs that paid minimum wage. He lived in his car sometimes so I could have a dorm room." Bobby's throat tightened. His father had told him some of this, but hearing it from Marcus made it real. "He wanted to give you the future Tommy didn't get to have. He gave me everything, and I didn't even know his real name until my mom told me the truth after he called her last month." Marcus stood, walked to the window overlooking the parking lot. "Your father confessed to killing my brother, spent 11 years in prison, came out and lived in poverty, all to protect you, then spent his last money protecting me. Do you understand how rare that is, that kind of selfless love?" "I'm beginning to—" Marcus turned back to Bobby. "Mom told me what really happened that night, that you were driving, that it was an accident, that Tommy was impaired, that the medical examiner ruled it accidental death. She told me you wanted to confess, to take responsibility 16 years later." Bobby nodded. "Your mother convinced me not to, said it would waste my father's sacrifice. She was right. But I want you to know I don't blame you. Bobby, how could I? You were a kid who made a mistake. You've spent 16 years saving lives. You've become the kind of man Tommy wanted to be, someone who protects people, who makes the world safer." Marcus extended his hand again. "I'd like to get to know you, if you're willing. Bill talks about you like you hung the moon. Says you're the best cop he's ever known." Bobby took his hand, then pulled the young man into a hug. Marcus stiffened for a moment, then hugged back hard. They stood there, two men connected by tragedy and redemption, brothers in every way that mattered. "I'd like that," Bobby said. "I'd like that a lot." The door opened, and William appeared, leaning heavily on a walker, a physical therapist at his elbow. When he saw Bobby and Marcus standing together, his face lit up with a joy Bobby hadn't seen in decades. "My boys," William said, his voice breaking. "Both my boys." 3 weeks later, on a cold January morning, William Mitchell was discharged from the hospital. Bobby pulled up in his truck, not the patrol car, but his personal vehicle. Duke sat in the back seat, tail wagging furiously. Marcus waited in the passenger seat. William moved slowly, still healing, but he was stronger every day. The doctor said his heart was functioning well, that he might have years left if he took care of himself. As they helped him into the truck, William looked at Bobby with wonder. "I'm really going home." "Yeah, Dad, you're really going home." The house on Maple Street looked exactly as William remembered it, a 3-bedroom ranch with blue shutters and a wraparound porch. His truck, the one he'd driven away in 16 years ago, sat in the driveway. Bobby had kept it maintained all these years, unable to sell it, unable to let go completely. Inside, the house was warm and clean. Bobby had spent the last week preparing, converting the ground floor office into a bedroom for his father. The man couldn't handle stairs yet, but in time, maybe he could reclaim his old room upstairs. Margaret's photos still lined the hallway. William stopped in front of one of their wedding day, both of them young and laughing and impossibly hopeful. "She loved you until the day she died," Bobby said quietly. "Never once said a bad word about you, no matter how angry I got. She knew, Dad. She knew why you left, and she understood." William touched the photo with shaking fingers. "I should have been here. I should have held her hand when she passed. She knew you loved her. That's what mattered." Over the next weeks, they fell into a routine. Bobby would leave for work in the morning, Duke by his side. William would spend the day regaining strength, walking further each day, helping with small tasks around the house. Marcus came for dinner twice a week, bringing his fiancée Emma, a teacher who reminded William of Tommy's gentle nature. The community response was mixed. Some people welcomed William home, understanding the sacrifice he'd made. Others whispered, uncomfortable with the deception, the false confession, the years of lies. But Dorothy Henderson's public forgiveness went a long way. She gave an interview to the local paper, explaining the truth that Tommy's death was an accident, that William had served time for a crime that legally didn't exist, that he'd spent the last 16 years in quiet atonement. This man gave up everything for his son. Dorothy was quoted saying, "Then gave up everything again for mine. That's not a criminal. That's a hero." The article went viral locally, then regionally. Offers of help poured in, job offers for William, donations, support. The community, once so quick to judge, rallied around the family. The local auto shop offered William part-time work when he was ready. The church set up a fund for his medical expenses. Slowly, painfully, the Mitchell family was being welcomed back. In March, Bobby and Sarah started dating officially. She'd been a constant presence at the hospital, supporting Bobby through the hardest days. They took things slow. But William could see the way his son looked at her, the same way William had once looked at Margaret. "Don't wait," William told Bobby one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Duke lay between them, head on William's lap. "Don't waste time like I did. Life's too short, son. If you love her, tell her." Bobby smiled. "I'm learning that from you, Dad. Better late than never." In April, there was a ceremony at the police station. Sheriff Bradshaw presented Duke with the department's Medal of Valor for locating William in the crashed vehicle, for refusing to abandon his post, for being instrumental in saving a life. Duke accepted his medal with dignity, then promptly tried to eat it, making everyone laugh. William was there, standing without his walker now, stronger every day. He wore a suit Bobby had bought him, his first new clothes in years. When the ceremony ended and people came to shake his hand, William stood tall, accepting their respect with quiet grace. "Thank you for your service," one retired officer said. "Both your service as a cop and your service as a father. Not many men would do what you did." William just nodded, too emotional to speak. In May, they gathered at the cemetery. William hadn't visited Margaret's grave since her funeral, had watched from a distance that day, unable to approach. Now he knelt before her headstone, placed flowers with trembling hands. "I'm sorry I wasn't here," he whispered. "Sorry I left you alone, but I hope you understand why I did it. Hope you can forgive me." Bobby knelt beside him, placed his own flowers. "She understood, Dad. She told me before she died she has said to find you and forgive you. I didn't listen then, but I'm listening now." They sat together in the grass, father and son, sharing memories. Bobby told stories about his mother's final years, the things William had missed. William shared memories from before, the happy years when their family was whole. Duke wandered the cemetery, then returned to lie between them, connecting them physically as he'd connected them spiritually. Marcus and Emma joined them, placing flowers at Tommy's grave nearby. The two families, bound by tragedy, had become one family bound by love. They didn't ignore the past or pretend Tommy's death hadn't shattered lives, but they chose to honor him by living fully, by loving deeply, by letting redemption rise from ruins. In June, Sarah accepted Bobby's proposal. They planned a small wedding for the fall, just family and close friends. William cried when Bobby asked him to be his best man. "I don't deserve that honor," William said. "You're my father. You've always been my best man, even when I couldn't see it." The wedding took place in October, and in the small church where Bobby had been baptized as a baby. William stood beside his son, wearing a new suit, his hair cut and face shaved, looking more like himself than he had in 16 years. Marcus served as a groomsman, standing proudly beside Bobby, two brothers united. Dorothy Henderson sat in the front row, smiling through happy tears. She'd become like a mother to Bobby over the past year, helping plan the wedding, offering advice, feeling the hole Margaret's death had left. Emma was a bridesmaid, already 7 months pregnant with Marcus, and her first child, a boy they planned to name Tommy William Henderson. As Bobby and Sarah exchanged vows, William thought about sacrifice and redemption. He'd lost 16 years, yes, but he'd saved his son's future. He'd protected Marcus when the boy needed protection most. And now he got to stand beside Bobby on the happiest day of his life, got to see his son become the man William always knew he could be. After the ceremony, at the reception in the church hall, Dorothy approached William. "May I have this dance?" They moved slowly around the floor. Two people who'd been enemies, then strangers, now friends. "Thank you," Dorothy said, "for giving me my son back. Marcus told me what you did, how you saved him. I couldn't save Tommy, but I could try to make sure his brother had a chance. Tommy would have liked you. You know, he was always drawn to people with kind hearts, people who cared more about others than themselves. I'm not a saint, Dorothy. I lied to you for years, let you think I'd killed your son. You protected your son. That's what parents do." She smiled. "And in doing so, you protected mine. Tommy's death wasn't your fault. Bill, it wasn't Bobby's fault. It was just a terrible accident. But what you did after that was a choice, a hard, selfless choice. That's what I'll remember. That's what my grandson will know about you, that you're a man who sacrificed everything for the people you loved." That night, back at the house on Maple Street, Bobby and Sarah left for their honeymoon. William sat on the porch with the Duke, looking at the stars. The house felt full again, alive with possibility. In the morning, Marcus was bringing Tommy William for a visit, the first great-grandchild Margaret would never meet. But William would. He thought about the last 16 years, the cold prison cells, the lonely motel rooms, the years watching his son from a distance. He thought about the price he'd paid and whether it had been worth it. Then he thought about Bobby, happy and whole, saving lives every day, about Marcus, successful and thriving, about to become a father himself, about the families both men would build, the lives they touch, the good they do in the world, worth it, every sacrifice, every lonely night, every moment of pain, worth it all. Duke's head rested on William's leg, the dog's breathing slow and steady. This dog who'd been abandoned and rescued, who'd served and protected, who'd brought William back to his son when death seemed certain. This dog who represented everything good about loyalty and love. "Good boy," William whispered, scratching behind Duke's ears. "You brought me home, didn't you? You and Bobby both brought this old man home." Inside the house, Margaret's photos watched over them, the blue shutters that needed painting, the porch that creaked in just the right places, the home that had waited 16 years for its missing piece to return. William Mitchell was home. Finally, completely, irrevocably home, and in the distance. Highway 7 stretched through the Nebraska darkness, that cursed stretch of road where everything had fallen apart and everything had come together, where a boy had died and a father had sacrificed, where a dog had been found and a family had been saved, where, 16 years after the worst night of their lives, a father and son had found their way back to each other. The red Cadillac sat in the garage, restored by Marcus as a gift. Tomorrow, William would drive it again for the first time in 16 years. Bobby would ride beside him, Duke in the back seat, and they'd drive past that spot on a Highway 7. They'd remember what was lost, honor what was saved, and keep moving forward, together, the way families do. Some secrets destroy, but some secrets, born of love and sacrifice, become the foundation for redemption. The Mitchell family had learned the difference, and they'd learned that it's never too late to come home. There are moments in life when we realize that the people we thought abandoned us were actually carrying our burdens in silence. Bill Mitchell gave up 16 years so his son could have a future. He watched from the shadows, loved from a distance, and suffered alone so Bobby wouldn't have to. This story reminds us that sacrifice often wears the face of absence, and that the deepest love sometimes requires the hardest goodbye. How many of us have misjudged someone's intentions, only to discover years later the truth behind their actions? How many times have we let pride or hurt keep us from seeking the whole story? Bill and Bobby lost precious time, but they found something more valuable in the end: forgiveness, understanding, and the chance to build new memories on the foundation of old wounds. Duke, the loyal German shepherd, became the bridge between past and present, proving that love always finds a way home. This Christmas, as families gather and old wounds surface, remember that it's never too late for truth, never too late for healing, and never too late to come home. Have you ever discovered that someone you resented was actually protecting you? What would you say to a loved one if you had one more chance to make things right? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.